So you have a strong desire to become fluent in Spanish, and maybe you're thinking that you have to live in a Spanish-speaking country to be able to achieve this. But is that really necessary? This thought has crossed my mind as well, especially after I graduated college, because then I had a desire to be fluent in Spanish as well. But I just finished my Spanish classes, so I was all on my own. I did not have any idea of how to reach fluency, even though I really wanted to achieve it. In my opinion, I don't think that you have to live in a Spanish-speaking country to become fluent in Spanish. And how can I be so confident in saying this? Well, the biggest reason is I'm an example. I became fluent in Spanish without living in a Spanish-speaking country. But maybe you have watched some of my other videos on my channel and you know that I have traveled to Mexico and the Dominican Republic. So maybe you're thinking, well, you definitely got fluent while you were there, right? I spent a total of 18 days in those two Spanish-speaking countries. Now, I wasn't staying with a host family and I wasn't doing study abroad, but I just went there for vacation. And I wouldn't say that traveling to the Dominican Republic and Mexico for 18 days is why I became fluent in Spanish. I have never lived in a Spanish-speaking country. I did not grow up bilingual. I did not grow up in a Spanish-speaking household. And I have taken classes or Spanish classes in high school, middle school, and also college, but I did not major in Spanish when I was in college. I did not get a minor. I wasn't a linguist or anything like that. I never tutored Spanish classes. I am definitely not a teacher in the Spanish language, and I've learned Spanish and also become fluent in Spanish as an adult. So trust me, if I can do it, you can do it too. Let's talk about my vacation in Mexico because I really want you to understand why I think the way that I do and why I say the things that I do say as far as me becoming fluent. Why I don't think just being in Mexico for 5 days really contributed to me becoming fluent in Spanish. And one reason is I went there just for vacation. So I didn't really have the mentality of that I was going to be studying a lot and really trying to become fluent. I was just going there to relax and to celebrate. Also, after graduating and arriving in Mexico, I realized that my communication skills just really weren't there. I didn't know how to express myself very well. I did not know how to connect a lot of sentences together. I was very slow when I spoke, and it was just a very challenging time. And then after I left Mexico, that did not really change. Even though I did learn some new words, I learned some new phrases, and I did have some contact with Spanish speakers when I was in Mexico, but it still didn't help out that much. Especially because I wasn't forcing myself to speak Spanish when I was in Mexico. I would do it sometimes if I was feeling up to it, but a lot of times I would just switch to English because I was just so tired. And speaking Spanish at that time was very difficult for me to do for a long period of time. After my vacation in Mexico, I had a very long break where I wasn't really studying Spanish, wasn't really learning anything about the Spanish language, and that was for 8 months. The time in between my vacation in Mexico and my first vacation in the Dominican Republic was about 2 years. And during this time frame is when I really got serious about learning Spanish and becoming fluent, or well, I would say attempting to become fluent. I say attempt because at that time I had no idea that everything that I was doing was going to help me become fluent. I started to read books in Spanish. I started to read the news in Spanish. I was watching movies and TV shows in Spanish on Netflix and also on YouTube. I also consumed just a lot of random videos on YouTube as well in Spanish. I would write in Spanish. I made some video recordings of myself in Spanish. And then I also downloaded the application Hello Talk, which is a language exchange application. So I was starting to get more exposure to having conversations through text messages and voice recordings, and then also some calls as well with Spanish speakers from different countries. And what else did I do? I started to think in Spanish, and then I also was listening to a lot of music in Spanish as well. And that was all from the comfort of my home. I did not even have to leave anywhere to do all those things, and they had a big impact on me becoming fluent in Spanish. And then after that, I started to drift a little bit away from my home and started to go to different places around my city and had more conversations with Spanish speakers in person and then started to make more Spanish speaking friends. And again, this is still in the United States where I live, and it was not in a Spanish speaking country. So I dedicated a lot of time to my Spanish studies, and I was studying basically every single day. And I also was experimenting a lot. And that was before my first trip to the Dominican Republic. So when I actually got to the Dominican Republic, I was already well prepared as far as communication. So I really did not have to switch to English to be able to communicate while I was there. Even though it was extremely difficult to communicate with the Dominicans because it was my first time being in this country, and then also it was really my first time being exposed to the Dominican way of speaking. It was very different. It was very hard to comprehend and communicate and express myself. But at the same time, I did not have to go back to English like I did in Mexico, and I was able to have conversations for up to 4 hours and 5 hours long without being very tired. This first trip to the Dominican Republic was for 7 days, and then my second visit to the Dominican Republic was for 6 days. And since my second visit to the Dominican Republic, which was the end of 2021, I've been consistently learning Spanish, immersing myself in Hispanic culture, having conversations in Spanish all the time with my Spanish speaking friends. So I have not stopped studying and learning this language, and this has all been mostly in the comfort of my home, or again around my city within the country that I live, Los Estados Unidos, the United States. If you enjoy watching videos like this one, consider supporting my channel and donating on my Buy Me a Coffee page. It is very appreciated and it is very helpful. You can find the link in the description box of this video. So now I hope you're very clear on my opinion on why I don't think you need to live in a Spanish-speaking country to become fluent. There are just so many ways to learn the Spanish language, especially in 2023 with all the technology and resources that we have available to us. And I don't want you to get trapped in that type of mentality where you just feel very boxed in and you don't feel like you're able to become fluent in Spanish just because you're not living in a Spanish-speaking country. Thank you very much for watching y nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.